Hello, friends. Well, we finished our study of Acts today, didn't we? And this is our last video review of what we have read. First of all, I want to talk about Paul's voyage to Rome. Luke seems to spend so much time and care on what was, after all, only a voyage, right? So I'm wondering, why? Why does he give this voyage so much press? Is he only engaged in a simple historical report? Well, I don't think so. You know, Luke is writing much more than simple history when he writes the book of Acts. He's writing a theological history. Now, he's an accurate historian, to be sure. I'm not questioning that. But what I'm saying here is that Luke is arranging his material, historical as it is, in such a way to say something about God. As a whole, I think we could say that Luke's narrative is a defense of God and a defense of God's work in history. Note God's involvement, for example, in the last several chapters of Acts. God speaks prophecies through Paul, and they are fulfilled. God appears to Paul in a vision and offers him assurance. God spares Paul from death by shipwreck and by poisonous snake bite. God has a plan for Paul to go to Rome and proclaim the reign of God and the teaching about Jesus even before the Caesar. And you know something? Nothing will thwart God's plan. So to sum it up, God is involved in the care and direction of his people. He has a plan. Now, we can quickly apply this teaching to our own lives, can't we? We might see ourselves in the storms of life. We too may be always close to death in this risky adventure of living. Our faith is that to some extent, or perhaps even to a very large extent, God is working out his plan in our lives. That God is directing and caring for us all along the way. So, Luke details Paul's voyage to Rome in order to highlight the way that God cares for his children and accomplishes his purposes. God is here, and he's actively involved in our world. Second, I want to talk about Paul. On the voyage to Rome, Paul continues to be a faithful witness of God, and he even assumes more of a leadership role, doesn't he? The centurion treats him well and even listens to Paul's advice. Indeed, Paul advises, exhorts, comforts, strengthens, encourages, challenges. All of those on the ship, Paul seems to assume a leadership role. He is God's spokesperson for his fellows on the ship. I appreciate the fact that in the most dangerous moment of all, when the ship is threatening to break apart and all on board are fearing for their lives, Paul is a faithful witness to God, to the one whose power and unseen presence was at work. I'm referring to the detail that Luke gives us, that Paul tried to encourage all on board to take food and to gain their strength, for God would spare them. And then the text tells us that Paul gave thanks to God in the presence of all. I think that's chapter 27 and about verse 35. So Paul is a witness to the power and presence of God. And we can be the same in our world, right? Finally, I want to say a word about the way that Luke closes the book. There is Paul, from morning to evening, testifying to the reign of God, trying to convince Jewish leaders about Jesus from the law and the prophets. No, he's not giving up on his people, and he's not going to stop teaching and preaching the message about Jesus. Here he is in captivity, but he continues to preach and teach about the Lord Jesus Christ. Luke says, with all boldness and without hindrance. And that must have been a great encouragement to Paul's original readers, as it is to us. that the good news of Jesus could not be stifled, that it could not be silenced, that the movement of Christ continued to grow unhindered. And may that be true in our day as well. Unhindered. May that describe our work for the Lord today. So, I want to close this video by thanking you again, my friends, for accompanying me on this journey through Acts. I have appreciated your company. We'll take a few weeks break before we plan to begin another 3-column study of another book of the Bible. And in fact, we're planning to start our next community study on October the 4th. Now, our plan is to read through a book in the Old Testament that has been largely ignored by the church, and I'm talking about the book of Leviticus. Now, there's a book that speaks of holiness and sacrifice and atonement, all themes that will help us to understand the New Testament better. So, please mark this date on your calendar, October the 4th, and plan to join us for our study of Leviticus. We'll be sending out more information and more details later, but until then, plan on joining us, and may God bless you in every way.